Right. So, I mean, you had to achieve this very delicate balance of being in franchising, yet giving the guardrail, so to speak, of that the franchisees need to stay within. And, a lot of franchise concepts would not have been able to pull that off.
Yeah, and it does come with its own problems because being able to say, look, the limit is 4, and you do still need to submit your recipe and your costs and the price that you want to sell it for, so that we can at least be on the same page and work together with this. Of course, we don't control the pricing at any of the stores, but we also want to consult with our owners to make sure they're profitable. The franchisees, I think now, when you have freedom in the franchise system, communication becomes even more important.
It does.
Yeah, because it's not like there's a checklist of 100 things that you have to abide by, and there's no wiggle room. So it's black and white. So when you do give freedom of creativity and recipes, then there has to be really healthy communication.
So let's talk about that support that you had to provide. So I'm going to imagine that your support for your franchisees looks a little bit different than some other models.
I don't know. I only know my model. I know the support that we do give. I do know that, as a franchise company, we front load our staff for the next 25 units. So we are always overstaffed up until we get to that next benchmark, to make sure that we are supporting the franchisees the way we need to. When you get from 10 stores to 25 stores, that's a huge difference. You're more than doubling your system. Go from 25 to 40, again, it's a big jump. So yeah, the support system, I'm not going to lie, we have ebbed and flowed as a franchise company with the level of communication. We have not been perfect. We are constantly addressing and assessing our support to the franchisees, and every franchisee is different. Some franchisees just love to be left alone, and if their sales are healthy and they're doing their thing, then they don't want to be bugged every week.
Sure.
Or every other week. And then there are some that just like with personalities, there's just some that require a little more care and finesse, and getting them through some answers to questions that they may not have. And so, we just had last week a company-wide Zoom meeting. So, we had like 60 people on Zoom, and just going over, look, this is where the company's at. This is where we're headed. This is where we failed you. This is where we're going to make those corrections. Just like with any company, you're not going to get it 100% right. And it's really important to me that we own up to where we do fall short, and to let them know this is our plan of attack, and this is the action we're going to take. And then the next meeting, we're going to go back and say, okay, this is what we said we were going to do. Did we do it?
Right. At the end of the day, people just want to know that you care, right? And that you're listening. Exactly. And you're trying.
Exactly. It's the the situation where someone emails you and you don't get back to them for a number of days. That number of days is a fire blazing. People want to have some kind of communication. If it's nothing more than, I don't have the answer right now, please give me 24 hours. That is what we expect of our team, that we're constantly responding to correspondence from our franchisees, but also being proactive in us reaching out to them. And we do this through Zoom meetings, phone calls, on-site visits, and we did an internal podcast for about a year, and I think people loved it. And then we just got super busy, and how on the ball you have to be to run a podcast. I mean, you have to have episodes upon episodes recorded before the drop date. And so we're getting back to doing that. It's just, that's one of the things that we let the ball drop on. So, but we have a great home office team, and they're getting communication from 8 to 10 different people, depending on what phase of the franchise build you're at. You could be in the build process. You could have been open for 3 months. You could have been open for 5 years. The further along that the franchisee is, the less communication I think that is necessary and they want, because they're like, look, I know what I'm doing. Let me do my thing.
Right.
Early on, I feel like the majority of them want that regular communication. And, do we need to come back for a site visit? Do you feel like you need maybe another couple of days of training?
How did you know when, as Just Love was growing, that you could scale more quickly? Because you really took off, and now you're essentially double the number of units in development than you've opened right now.
Right.
So was there a trigger for you, Rob? And you're like, all right, we can accelerate this growth.
Honestly, I think it wasn't until like the last few months that I felt like, okay, we
dial it up
now. We had a little bit of identity crisis in the early years.
Tell me about that.
Well, as a coffee enthusiast, I was naturally drawn to this highbrow coffee experience. So the latest equipment, the craft brewing the coffee 1 cup at a time in front of you. All of our ready to drink tapped coffee was all French press. I hired baristas who were great baristas, but didn't really fit the culture that well. And what I found was I was really capturing a real, a narrow market. Not everybody. I mean, the minority of people want that craft experience. I finally made the decision that, look, I did a market analysis. And I said, look, we've got all these highbrow shops that are maybe 1 or 2 shops in a market. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got units going from, like 1,000 to tens of thousands. And I couldn't find anything in the middle. And so I was like, there's this big opportunity in the middle of the market. So I said, why can't we offer a highbrow experience to those that want it, and kind of a mass marketed experience to the majority of the customer base? And so we intentionally did that. So for instance, we'll do a by the cup hand brew in a V60 brew basket, and put it on a tray, and give you your little scone bite with it, and it costs you $6. And then we have your $2 drip coffee. We have traditional cappuccinos, which are 6 ounces, and then we have 20-ounce lattes. That is by definition not a latte, but that's just what everybody is accustomed to. On the coffee roasting side, we have your traditional whole bean 12-ounce bags, but we also have fractional packs for offices. We also have single serve cups for your Keurig machines, and that's just not something a specialty coffee roaster does. They think in general that it jeopardizes the integrity of the product. And what I wanted, I said, look, we've got love in our name. And what we're going to do is offer the customer what it is that they want. And we're going to make that product in that medium the best that we can. And so that's the approach that we took.
I think that you've put your passion and your heart behind every part of this business, for sure. And and you're not afraid to make the difficult decision. And innovation, though, is a huge part of your brand, though. I mean, everything I've been hearing for the past 30 plus minutes is really all about putting your passion, but putting innovation behind it, and not afraid to try.
Absolutely. And I think one of the mistakes I made in the past few years is making the food menu too complicated. And so, I'm going through the process right now with our ops team to look, let's find what products the customers are really buying, and let's simplify this so they don't get deer in the headlights when they go to the menu trying to pick between 25 different food items.
Right.
It's a constant process of improving and trying to figure out, what does the customer want? What does our new customer want? What is the person who's never walked in there? How are we going to make them feel as comfortable as possible when they walk in there? It's certainly not by giving them a highbrow experience and looking at them in disgust when they ask where the cream and sugar is. Mm-hmm. We want them to come to the POS system and ask them, what is it that you typically drink at home if you're looking for a bag of beans? And, if they say, I drink some General Mills dark roast coffee at home, then that's what we start with. We'll say, okay, well, that's good to know. Then I think the best coffee for you would be, our African Skies. I think that's a good pairing. You don't have to be a coffee connoisseur to come into Just Love. What I want is for you to come in and be comfortable. Pivotal point for me in figuring this out was I was reading reviews of other coffee shops in the Nashville area. Mm-hmm. Now I was curious. My favorite shop outside of Just Love, I was curious about their reviews. I wanted to see what they were doing right, because they're very successful. They do a good job, and I look up to the owner that owns that shop, and I wanted to know what they were doing. Well, I came across a bad review, and the bad review was simply this. This is my favorite coffee shop, and my parents and my grandparents were in town, and I wanted to take them to my favorite coffee shop. And when they got there, they didn't know what to order, and there was nothing there that was familiar to them. And that's when it hit me. You know what? The thing that I need to focus on is making sure there is something for everybody. So regardless of whether you're a 6-year-old kid coming in with your mom and dad, or you're a retiree, or whatever, you're a stay-at-home mom, I want there to be something for you. And that's how we've built the menu. We really have tried to make it to where a multi-generational family can walk into a Just Love Coffee Cafe and there be something for everybody. From a business standpoint, of course, I want as much of the market as I can get. But more importantly, I just want the customer to feel comfortable, mm-hmm. and I want them to be excited to see there's something on the menu that they want.
And isn't it true at the same time that as an entrepreneur, though, we can get in our head of trying to make something so complicated. We're trying to be, everything to everybody, but in a very complicated way. And you simplified what essentially any guest, any customer would want.
Yeah. And to the simplification point, man, I went to Vegas last year and went to In-N-Out Burger. And man, that thing is brilliant.
Right. It is.
I mean, they sell one thing.
Mm-hmm.
They sell one thing.
Right.
And with that one thing, they probably have 6 items on the menu. And you literally are, there's a line out the door. You're in and out in a matter of 10 minutes.
Right. And the drive-through, doesn't matter what time of day or night, that drive-through is busy.
Yeah. So I was there just mesmerized, just looking behind the counter and looking at these processes that this company has created. And there are a number of concepts like that. And, they do it really, really well. They know their customer base and they're serving it. And I think that's really important for any concept is you have to know who your customer is.
Right.
Without that, you just got a blindfold on and you're, throwing things at the wall, seeing what's going to stick. Thank
you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.